Every morning I woke up sick, yet the doctors couldn't uncover the cause. One day, a jeweler on the subway grabbed my hand. "Remove that necklace. There's something inside the pendant." I trembled. My husband had given it to me. The doctors swore I was going crazy, that the constant nausea, the crushing exhaustion, it was all in my head. But I knew, deep down, something was horribly wrong. And then a complete stranger on a subway train whispered 6 words that ripped my world apart. "Take off the necklace. I see poison." For 2 agonizing months, every single morning had started the same way. The familiar, burning dread would rise in my throat, forcing me out of bed, sprinting to the bathroom just barely in time to slam the door before my stomach emptied itself completely. After, I'd splash cold water on my face, utterly wrung out, and stare at my reflection. Pale. Dark circles under my eyes. My cheekbones, once soft, now sharp, almost skeletal. I'd lost 15 pounds. I was never big, but the whispers at the pharmacy where I worked had already started. Anorexia. Nervous exhaustion. They thought I was losing my mind, but I was just losing myself. What if we see another doctor? Alex's worried voice cut through my thoughts as the bathroom door creaked open. He was asking again. I just nodded, too weak to speak. He came closer, wrapping his arms around my shoulders, and I breathed in the familiar comfort of his woody cologne, that hint of bergamot. Mom says she knows a really good gastroenterologist. At the mention of his mother, Eleanor, I felt my body tense, an involuntary reflex I tried hard to hide. Eleanor was the only shadow in the otherwise bright sky of our marriage, a delicate subject that always hung between us. "I've already seen 5 doctors, Alex." I finally managed, my voice raspy. "They all say the same thing. My tests are fine. My organs are healthy. They think it's psychosomatic, that I need a psychologist." I pulled away slightly, looking into his eyes. Was it my imagination, or did a flicker of doubt cross his gaze? No, I must have been imagining it. Alex loved me. Of that, I had no doubt. "I'm not crazy," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I'm not saying you're crazy," he countered, a familiar defensiveness creeping in. "It's just that Mom thinks." "And what else does your mother think?" The question came out sharper than I intended, laced with frustration I hadn't meant to reveal. Alex frowned, and an uncomfortable silence settled between us. My heart immediately sank with regret. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm just so tired. This nausea is draining me." He nodded, but I saw a shadow of hurt in his eyes. He could never take my complaints about his mother calmly. To him, Eleanor was the ideal woman, strong, wise, always right. And I was just the wife who, for some reason, couldn't find common ground with his family. As I got ready for work, my fingers mechanically brushed against the pendant on my neck, an elegant silver oval with an engraved ivy leaf. Alex had given it to me for our 3rd wedding anniversary exactly 2 months ago. "So you can always feel my love close to you," he'd said, fastening the chain around my neck. Since then, I hadn't taken it off, not for a minute. The pendant was cool and pleasant against my skin, and despite everything, I smiled. Whatever else was happening, I had Alex, the man who had changed my life 3 years ago. On my way to work, I took the subway, as usual. The morning crowd, the mingled smells of coffee and perfume, the low murmur of voices, it was all just background noise now. I leaned against the handrail, closing my eyes. The nausea had subsided a bit, but the crushing weakness remained. "Excuse me." A voice, very close, startled me, and my eyes flew open. In front of me stood an older man, tall, with a neat gray beard and a strangely attentive gaze in his dark eyes. He wore an old-fashioned but well-kept suit, and on his ring finger was a wide gold ring with an intricate engraving. "Do I know you?" I asked, bewildered, my mind still foggy. "No," he spoke softly, almost a whisper, leaning toward me. He smelled faintly of old books and something metallic. "But I must tell you something." "I'm sorry, I'm not interested." I tried to pull away, thinking he was just another city eccentric or a con man, but He gently touched my arm. Not grabbing, just a light, careful touch. Take off the necklace, he said, his voice flat. I see what's independent. I froze. My fingers went involuntarily to the pendant. My husband gave it to me for our anniversary. What do you think you're doing? I demanded, my voice rising. Open it in front of me, the man said quietly. There was no threat in his voice, only a strange, terrifying certainty. It doesn't open. It's a solid piece. He shook his head. Yes, it does. Do you see that line on the side edge? It's a mechanism. I wanted to argue, to push past him, to call the police, anything to escape this bizarre encounter. But something in his eyes, a deep knowing, made me hesitate. He didn't seem mad, and he certainly didn't look like a scammer. The train slowed. The doors hissed open. People moved around us, a blur of faces. The man took a business card from his pocket and pressed it into my hand. Richard Sterling, jeweler and antiquarian. 40 years working with jewelry. If you don't believe me, check for yourself. But if you value your life, take that pendant off and never put it on again. He stepped out of the car, and the doors closed behind him. I stood there, clutching the card, my heart hammering so loud I felt like the whole car could hear it. The workday dragged on unbearably long. The pharmacy, my sanctuary for 5 years, was usually a calming routine. Regular customers, familiar prescriptions, friendly faces. But today, every minute was a struggle. Sophia, you're so pale, Lucy, my best friend and colleague, observed, coming up to the register during a lull. Morning sickness, as always? I smiled bitterly. About 20 times, all negative. Lucy frowned. We'd been friends since our first year of pharmacy school, almost 10 years ago. She was a nurse at the clinic next door, and sometimes she knew more about my health than the doctors themselves. Maybe a hidden infection? Parasites. They've tested me for everything. Nothing. What about a toxicology screen? I looked at her in surprise. Toxicology? You think someone's poisoning me? Lucy shrugged. I'm just going through the options. Your symptoms are really strange. Morning sickness, weakness, weight loss, and all tests normal. That can happen with chronic low-dose poisoning. My hands went cold. The stranger's words on the subway came back with terrifying clarity. If you value your life, take that pendant off. Lucy, that's ridiculous. No one would want to poison me. What about your mother-in-law? Lucy asked, her tone dry. You've told me yourself how much she hates you. How she tried to break you two up, how she told Alex you weren't the woman for him. I shook my head. Yes, my relationship with Eleanor was far from ideal, but poisoning? It sounded insane. She's an overbearing, unpleasant woman, but not a murderer. Lucy fell silent, but her expression remained doubtful. I turned to the medicine shelf, pretending to check expiration dates. The jeweler's card burned in my pocket like a hot coal. That evening, I went straight to the bathroom and stared at the pendant in the mirror for a long, long time. The elegant silver oval, the ivy leaf. Alex had said he'd commissioned it from a jewelry workshop, an exclusive, hand-engraved piece. My finger traced the side edge, and suddenly, it stopped. There it was. A fine, barely perceptible line, almost invisible. I'd always mistaken it for a decorative element, but now... Sophia, are you home? Alex's voice from the entryway startled me. I quickly hid the pendant under my blouse. Yes, I'm in the bathroom. I tried to smile as naturally as possible, coming out to greet him. He looked tired. As an architect at a large firm, he'd been staying late for a month on a major project. How are you feeling? He asked, kissing my forehead. Better. I've barely had any nausea during the day. See? Maybe it's already passing. I nodded, though I knew it wasn't true. The nausea hadn't disappeared. I'd just learned to hide it. But the weakness was only increasing. Sometimes I felt like my legs would give out, and I'd just collapse at work. During dinner, Alex talked about his project, the client difficulties, his plans for the weekend. I listened with half an ear, my mind consumed by the pendant. Should I tell him about the strange jeweler? Or would he just scare him and once again advise me to see a psychologist? Mom asked us to stop by on Sunday, Alex said casually, breaking my thoughts. I suppressed a sigh. She's worried about you. The skepticism in my voice was obvious. Alex frowned. Sophia, you're unfair to her. She wants to help. Help? Your mother has hated me from day one. You know that perfectly well. That's not true. Not true? And who told me at our wedding that I was ruining her son's life? Who called you every day for the first year of our marriage, convincing you to get a divorce? Who still refers to me as that woman instead of by my name? Alex put down his fork, his face a mask of weary resignation. She has a difficult character, but she's my mother, and that means I have to endure her humiliations. A heavy silence fell. I watched my husband struggle within himself, caught between his love for me and his loyalty to his mother. That struggle had been going on for all 3 years of our marriage, and each time, it ended the same way. Alex would try to please both, and I would be the one to suffer. Let's not argue, he said finally, his voice flat. You're sick. I'm tired. Let's talk about this later. I wanted to retort, to scream, but I held back. He was right. We were both too exhausted for this conversation. That night, I lay awake, listening to Alex's even breathing beside me. The pendant was still on my neck, now warm from my body heat. The jeweler's words wouldn't leave me alone. What had he seen in that piece of jewelry? And why was he so sure it was dangerous? The memory of my first meeting with Eleanor surfaced on its own, unwanted but inevitable. It was 4 years ago, in a restaurant with a panoramic view of the city. Alex had invited me to meet his mother, and I had prepared with the excitement of a young woman in love, desperate to please her beloved's family. Eleanor arrived 20 minutes late, her signature move, as I'd later learn. Tall, imposing, with a perfect hairstyle and a cold, evaluating gaze in her blue-gray eyes. She looked me over from head to toe, her lips pressing together almost imperceptibly. So, this is your choice, she addressed her son, as if I weren't even there. Mom, this is Sophia. Sophia, this is my mother, Eleanor. A pleasure to meet you. I smiled, extending my hand. My mother-in-law looked at it as if it were something unpleasant, barely touching my fingertips. Throughout the evening, she interrogated me like a prosecutor. Who were my parents? What did they do? What was my education? How much did I earn? Did I own my own home? My answers clearly did not satisfy Eleanor. My parents were simple people, my father an electrician, my mother a nurse. We lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Queens, inherited from my grandmother. I see, Eleanor said after another answer. And what are your plans for my son? Mom, Alex protested. What? I have a right to know what this girl's intentions are. I didn't know what to say then. I loved Alex. Wasn't that enough? But for Eleanor, love was too abstract a concept. She thought in terms of benefits, status, prospects. After that meeting, she called Alex and spent 2 hours trying to convince him to break off the relationship. That girl is not for you. She's a gold digger. You deserve someone from your own circle. Alex didn't listen to her. Back then, he was ready to do anything for our love. We got married a year later despite all of Eleanor's objections. At the wedding, she sat with a stone face and ostentatiously left right after the ceremony, not staying for the reception. You've ruined my son's life, she whispered to me before leaving. He will never forgive you for this. 3 years had passed since then. Eleanor hadn't given up. She had just changed her tactics. Now, she didn't make open scandals, but acted more subtly. She called Alex every day, complained about her health, demanded attention. At every meeting, she found a way to humiliate me, a comment about my hairstyle, my clothes, my cooking. I'm surprised you haven't poisoned your husband with your casseroles yet, she said once at a family dinner. I remembered how my heart sank at those words, and how Alex remained silent, pretending not to have heard. Dawn came too quickly. Nausea hit me with the first rays of sun, stronger than usual. I barely made it to the bathroom. I vomited so violently my vision blurred, and when it was over, I collapsed, strengthlessly, onto the cold, tiled floor. What was happening to me? Why couldn't the doctors find anything? The pendant was cool against my skin, as if reminding me of its presence. Suddenly, I felt an irresistible urge to rip it off, to throw it away, to get rid of it forever. But it was a gift from my husband, the only piece of jewelry he had ever chosen for me. And yet, with trembling hands, I unfastened the clasp and left the pendant on the shelf above the sink. Then, with an effort, I got up, washed my face, and went to the kitchen. Alex had already left for work, always early to beat the traffic. On the table was a note. Breakfast in the fridge. Love you. Don't forget about Sunday. Sunday. The visit to my mother-in-law. I crumpled a note and threw it in the trash. The day passed strangely. Without the pendant, I felt better. The nausea didn't disappear completely, but it was less intense. At lunchtime, I was even able to eat normally for the first time in weeks. You look better today, Lucy noted during a break. Seriously, you have some color. You look like a person again. I was lost in thought. Could the pendant really be connected to my condition? It sounded crazy. But that evening, I took out the jeweler's card and examined it for a long time. Richard Sterling, jeweler and antiquarian. Appraisal, repair, expertise. The address indicated a small workshop in an old part of the city. Should I go? I thought, at least to find out what he meant. But at the last moment, I changed my mind. That old man probably just wanted to pull my leg, get some money out of me for an expensive appraisal or repair. There were so many scammers in the city. I put the pendant back on and went to sleep. The next morning began with such a severe attack of nausea that I lost consciousness in the bathroom. I woke up on the cold, hard floor. My head was spinning, and I had a metallic taste in my mouth. What's happening to me? I whispered into the void. Barely getting up, I looked in the mirror and shuddered. The face of a seriously ill person stared back at me, gray, gaunt, with a bluish tint under my eyes. I had never felt so bad. My hands went on their own to the pendant's clasp. I took it off and left it on the shelf, just like the day before. And, as if by magic, I felt the pressure in my stomach ease slightly. That day, I didn't go to work. I called in sick. I spent the whole day at home without the pendant. And by evening, I felt almost normal. I had dinner, watched a movie, even took a short walk in the courtyard. Before bed, I put the jewelry back on, afraid that Alex would notice its absence and get upset. The morning greeted me with another attack. Now, there was no doubt. 2 days without the pendant, relative relief. 2 days with the pendant, a horrible state. It couldn't be a coincidence. I'm going crazy, I told myself. But my hands were already dialing the number from the business card. Richard answered on the third ring. Sterling. Hello, I said, my voice trembling. We met on the subway a few days ago. You told me about my pendant. A pause. Then a voice filled with relief. You finally called. Thank God. I was afraid I hadn't made it in time. Hadn't made it in time for what? To save you, my dear girl. To save you. Richard Sterling's workshop was in an old building near downtown, with high ceilings, narrow windows, and creaky wooden floors. The sign above the entrance read, Jewelry Workshop. Appraisal, repair, expertise. Since 1978. I pushed the heavy door and found myself in a small room filled with glass display cases. Behind the counter, bent over a magnifying glass, sat the same man from the subway. Come in, he said, without looking up. Did you bring the pendant? Yes. I took the jewelry out of my pocket and placed it on the counter. Richard Sterling set aside his work and carefully examined the pendant without touching it. Then he put on thin gloves and took the jewelry in his hands. I didn't introduce myself properly. Richard Sterling. Before retiring, I worked as a forensic expert in the Major Crimes Unit, specializing in poisoning and toxicology. For the last 15 years, I've been in the jewelry business, a hobby that became a profession, so to speak. A forensic expert? I felt my hands go cold. Precisely. And when I saw your pendant on the subway, I knew right away that something was wrong. You see, I've worked with poisonings for too many years not to recognize the characteristic symptoms. The color of your face, the dark circles, the general exhaustion, a classic picture of chronic intoxication. But the doctors didn't find anything because they weren't looking in the right place. They were analyzing your body when what needed to be analyzed was your environment. He turned the pendant on its side. Do you see this line? It's not decorative. It's a hidden mechanism. Richard took a thin tool resembling a dental probe from a drawer and carefully inserted it into the barely visible slit. There was a soft click, and the pendant opened into two halves. I stifled a cry. Inside, in a special hollow, lay a tiny capsule, no bigger than a grain of rice. It was semi-transparent, with a dark substance inside. "What is this?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "This, my dear friend, is the explanation for your illness. A microcapsule with a substance that is released upon contact with human body heat. You wear the pendant on your chest, the warmest place. The capsule heats up, its walls become permeable, and the poison slowly but surely enters your system through the skin." I felt like I was going to faint. Richard quickly sat me down in a chair and gave me a glass of water. "Breathe. Take a deep breath." "Who?" I gasped. "Who did this?" "I don't know that, but I can tell you for sure that this is not a manufacturing defect or an accident. Someone intentionally modified this piece of jewelry to harm you. But it's a gift from my husband. He couldn't have." The jeweler held up a hand. "I'm not saying your husband did it. It's possible he doesn't even suspect its contents. But someone with access to this pendant turned it into a murder weapon." Murder. I could barely speak the word. Not immediately, of course. Slow poisoning is always a long-term game. They would have attributed it to some disease, maybe even cancer. The doctors would have found organ malfunction, but never the cause. The perfect crime. I covered my face with my hands. I couldn't process it. Who could want me dead? And most importantly, why? "We need to run a test," Richard continued, his voice firm. "Determine what exactly is in this capsule and find who put it there. It's too soon for the police. We don't have proof of a crime, only a suspicion. First the analysis, then we decide how to proceed." I nodded, my head spinning. "Do you have someone you trust? Friends? Family?" "My friend Lucy is a nurse." "Good. We might need her help. And for now, not a word to your husband. I understand it's difficult. But until we know who is behind this, we can't take any risks." Leaving the workshop, I felt as if the world around me had collapsed and been rebuilt, but in a distorted, nightmarish way. Loved had given me a poison pendant. The mother-in-law who hated me. Could it be possible? No. It was too much. It was impossible. But the capsule with poison was very real, and someone had put it there. I spent the whole evening as if in a daze. I made dinner, talked to Alex about his work, watched TV, but I did everything mechanically like an automaton. Only one thought was spinning in my head. "You're a little off today," Alex noted before we went to sleep. "I'm just tired. Are you still not feeling well?" "A little." I swallowed, trying to get rid of the lump in my throat. "Alex, where did you buy my pendant?" He looked at me surprised. "At a jewelry store on Madison Avenue." "Why?" "Just curious." "Did you pick it out yourself?" "Well, yes. I mean, Mom helped me choose it. She knows a lot about jewelry." I felt as if icy fingers were squeezing my heart. "Your mother?" "Yes." I showed her several options, and she said this one was the most beautiful. "Why do you ask?" "No reason, just wanted to know." I turned to the wall, so my husband wouldn't see my face. Eleanor had helped choose the pendant. Eleanor, who from the very first day had dreamed of getting rid of me. But to suspect my mother-in-law of attempted murder was madness. It was the delirium of a paranoid woman. "And yet, you've ruined my son's life. He will never forgive you for this." The words she'd said at the wedding came back with terrifying clarity. Back then, I'd taken them as the simple malice of an offended mother. But what if there was something more behind them? The next day, I met Lucy at a coffee shop near work. My friend listened to my story with growing horror. "Oh my God, Sophia, are you sure?" The jeweler showed me the capsule. It was inside the pendant, tiny, with a substance inside. "And he thinks it's poison." He's a former forensic expert. He says the symptoms are typical of chronic poisoning. Lucy was silent, processing the information. And you think it was your mother-in-law? I don't know, but Alex said she helped choose the pendant and had access to it. She often comes to our apartment when I'm not there. She has keys. But that's murder. Attempted murder. As long as I'm still alive, I corrected her, a chilling thought. Lucy grabbed my hand. You have to go to the police. Richard says we need the analysis first. Otherwise, they won't believe us. What analysis? An official one in a lab. Yes, he knows people who can help, but it will take time. Lucy frowned. And have you told Alex? I shook my head. I can't. If it's his mother, he won't believe me. He'll take her side, like he always does. You're being unfair. Maybe this time, Lucy. You don't understand. I've lived with him for 3 years. Every time it comes to his mother, he becomes blind and deaf. To him, she's a saint. And I'm a hysteric who exaggerates. My friend squeezed my hand. Then let's gather proof. Irrefutable proof, so he can't deny it. I nodded. It was the only way. In the following days, my life turned into a strange spy game. I wore the pendant so Alex wouldn't notice its absence, but I tried to take it off at every opportunity. At work, the jewelry stayed in my desk drawer. At home, on the bathroom shelf. I told Alex the chain was irritating my neck. Richard sent the capsule for analysis to an old acquaintance, a toxicologist who worked in a private lab. The results would be ready in a week. Meanwhile, I secretly watched my mother-in-law. It turned out to be easier than I thought. Eleanor was an active social media user, regularly posting photos of her busy life, meetings with friends, trips to the theater, charity events, the perfect image of a successful retiree. But among the photos, I found something interesting. 2 months ago, just before our anniversary, my mother-in-law had posted photos from that same jewelry store on Madison Avenue, helping my son with a gift for his wife. The caption read, with Eleanor posing next to a jewelry display case. So she was really there. She really touched the pendant. But that still didn't prove anything. I kept digging. I started noticing things I hadn't paid attention to before. The frequency with which Eleanor came to our apartment for no apparent reason, usually when I was at work, how Alex told his mother everything that happened in our family, how Eleanor was always aware of our plans, our schedules, even the contents of our fridge. She controls our life, I realized with horror. She always has. On Sunday, as planned, we went to her mother-in-law's. I wore the pendant. I had no choice. Eleanor noticed the jewelry immediately. Oh, what a beautiful pendant, she said in a honeyed voice. Son, did you give this to her? Yes, Mom. For our anniversary. How lovely. Let me see it closer. Eleanor reached for the pendant, and I instinctively recoiled. What's wrong with you? Eleanor frowned. I just want to admire it. I'm sorry. I'm just not feeling very well. Always with your ailments. There was barely concealed irritation in her voice. Alex, you should really take her to a good psychiatrist. A normal woman doesn't get sick for no reason. I clenched my teeth to keep from responding rudely. Lunch passed in a tense atmosphere. Eleanor, as usual, didn't miss an opportunity to take a jab at her daughter-in-law. Comments about my paleness, my thinness, my ineptitude in the kitchen. It all flowed in a continuous stream disguised as maternal concern. Alex is so thin, she lamented. You're probably not feeding him. Mom, I'm fine. Alex tried to intervene. Of course, you say that so as not to upset her. But I can see. When you lived with me, you were such a strong, healthy boy. I ate my salad in silence, counting the minutes until I could leave. And then I noticed something strange. My mother-in-law was looking at my pendant, not just looking but studying it with a predatory focus, as if checking that the jewelry was in its place. Our eyes met, and Eleanor instantly looked away, putting on a fake smile. A little more salad, dear? I felt a chill run down my spine. It was the look of someone with a secret. A terrible secret. On the way home, I was silent. Alex, used to my gloom after visits to his mother, didn't ask questions. He turned on the radio and focused on the road. Alex, I said suddenly. If you had to choose between your mother and me, who would you choose? He glanced at me in surprise. What kind of question is that? Just answer. Alex was silent. Sophia, that's not fair. You're both important to me. You don't have to put me in that position. And if you had to? Again, silence. Then, I hope I never have to. It wasn't an answer. And I understood that when the time came, my husband wouldn't take my side. He would again try to please both of them. He would again choose neutrality, and I would be left alone. The analysis results came 5 days later. Richard called me at work. His voice was grim. Can you come by? We need to talk. At the workshop, the jeweler was waiting for me with a thick folder of documents. Sit down, he indicated a chair. The news is not good. I felt my legs go weak. What's in it? Thallium. Thallium. A heavy metal, one of the most toxic to humans. It used to be used to poison rats, but then it was banned. Too dangerous. In chronic poisoning, it causes nausea, weakness, hair loss, and damage to the nervous system. In high doses, it's lethal. I gripped the edge of the table. But how? How did it get into the pendant? That's the main question. Richard opened the folder. The capsule was custom-made. It wasn't an accident. Someone knew what they were doing. The walls of the capsule are made of a special material that becomes permeable at temperatures above 86 degrees. When you wear the pendant, it warms up from your body, and the thallium is slowly released through the skin. But where would a normal person get thallium? I asked, bewildered. It's not easy to get, but it's possible. It used to be sold in rat poisons. Now, of course, it's banned, but on the black market, or if someone kept old stock. I remembered my mother-in-law's house, an old stately apartment with a storeroom full of junk. Eleanor boasted that she never threw anything away. You never know what might be useful. I need to check something, I said. What exactly? My mother-in-law has a storeroom. She keeps everything, including old chemicals. Maybe. Richard frowned. That's dangerous. If she's really behind this, and for now it's just a guess, she won't stop. I know, but I need proof. Then be careful and don't go alone. I nodded. I already knew who I would take with me. Lucy received the idea with mixed feelings. Sneaking into your mother-in-law's house? Sophia, you're crazy. It's not sneaking. It's a legal inspection. Alex will give me the keys and won't ask what for. I'll tell him I want a recipe from an old cookbook. He's at work all day anyway. Lucy shook her head. This is a bad idea. Do you have a better one? My friend was silent. There was no better idea. The plan was simple. I would ask Alex for the keys to his mother's apartment under the pretext that Eleanor had promised me a recipe from an old cookbook. Then, while my mother-in-law was at her weekly Opera Lovers Club meeting, Lucy and I would enter the apartment and inspect the storeroom. It sounded like a plan from a bad detective movie, but I couldn't think of anything better. Alex gave me the keys without asking too many questions. He was too busy with his project to get into details. Just don't leave anything messy. Mom doesn't like it, he'd asked. I promised. On Thursday evening, when Eleanor left for the opera, the two of us stood in front of her apartment door. Ready? Lucy whispered. I nodded and inserted the key into the lock. My mother-in-law's apartment was just as I remembered it, impeccably clean, exquisitely decorated and cold. Everything was in its place, and every object seemed to say, "Don't touch me." Where's the storeroom? Lucy whispered. The door is in the kitchen. There are stairs leading down. We walked through the hallway, trying not to make any noise, even though the apartment was empty. I found the storeroom door, old wooden with a heavy lock. Damn, it's locked. Do you have the key? Alex only gave me the one for the front door. Lucy examined the lock. It's an old one, the kind you can open with a hairpin. Can you do it? My friend smiled. As a kid, I had access to all the neighbors' sheds. 5 minutes later, the lock clicked open. I pushed the door, and a smell of dampness and dust hit us. The stairs were steep and dark. I turned on my phone's flashlight and started down. Lucy followed. The storeroom was large, a real labyrinth of shelves filled with boxes, jars, and old junk. Everything was stored there, from grandmother's dishes to antique typewriters. "What are we looking for?" Lucy whispered. "I don't know exactly. Chemicals, poisons, something suspicious." We split up to search faster. I methodically examined the shelves, opening jars and boxes. Most of them contained harmless junk, old photos, documents, Alex's childhood toys. And then I froze. On the bottom shelf, behind rows of dusty jam jars, was a tin box with a faded inscription. I took it, wiped the lid, and read, "Potent rodenticide. Contents: thallium sulfate." My heart started beating so fast I was afraid it could be heard. With trembling hands, I opened the box. Inside was a half-empty bag of gray powder. "Lucy," I called in a choked whisper. "Lucy, I found it." My friend ran over and froze, staring at the box. "That's it. Thallium sulfate. The same substance that was in the pendant." Lucy photographed the find with her phone. "We need to take this as evidence." I nodded. I was about to grab the box when we heard the sound of a door opening upstairs. We froze. Footsteps. Someone was walking around the apartment. Then Eleanor's voice. "Alex, are you here?" Lucy and I looked at each other in horror. My mother-in-law had come back early. "This way," I mouthed silently and pulled Lucy into a dark corner of the storeroom, behind an old wardrobe. We hid, holding our breath. Footsteps could be heard upstairs. Eleanor was walking through the kitchen. How strange, her voice came. "The storeroom door is open." The footsteps approached the stairs. I squeezed my eyes shut. "The lock must have broken again," my mother-in-law muttered. "I need to call a locksmith." The sound of the door closing. The click of the lock. We were trapped. "Damn it," Lucy whispered. "Shh." I put a finger to my lips. Silence reigned upstairs. Apparently, Eleanor had gone to another part of the apartment, but now it was impossible to get out. "What do we do now?" Lucy asked, barely audible.
"Wait."
"Sooner or later, she'll go to bed." "And what if she doesn't?" I didn't answer. I didn't know. We spent 3 hours in the storeroom, 3 hours in the dark, cold, and fear of being discovered. Lucy periodically checked her phone. No service. The thick walls blocked the signal. Finally, around midnight, we heard footsteps upstairs. Eleanor went to her bedroom. The kitchen light went out. "Let's wait another hour," I decided. Let her fall soundly asleep. The hour dragged on eternally. But when complete silence took over the apartment, we decided to act. Lucy worked the lock again. From the inside, it opened even more easily. The door creaked softly, and we slipped out into the kitchen. The apartment was dark. Somewhere behind a closed door, my mother-in-law's even snores could be heard. On tiptoe, like thieves, we reached the entryway. I had just put my hand on the front door knob when the hallway light switched on. In the bedroom doorway stood Eleanor, in a silk nightgown, a murderous look on her face. Well, my dear daughter-in-law, I knew it was you." I froze. Lucy behind me stifled a scream. "Eleanor, quiet." My mother-in-law's voice was as cold as steel. "I see everything. The box with the thallium in your purse. You decided to frame me.
Come in.
Plant the evidence, and then accuse me of poisoning." "What?" "No, don't deny it. I knew you were cunning, but not this cunning." Eleanor took a step forward. "First, you bewitched my son. Now you're trying to get rid of me, but you won't succeed. Do you hear me? You won't succeed." She took out her phone. "I'm calling Alex and the police right now. Let's see how you explain why you broke into my house in the middle of the night." "Wait," I cried. "It wasn't me. It was you. You put the thallium in my pendant." My mother-in-law let out an unpleasant cackling laugh. "What nonsense. Have you gone completely mad? I always told Alex that woman isn't right in the head." "It's not nonsense. There's an analysis." "Richard."
"Who?"
"Richard? Some old man from a shabby workshop who's willing to sign any paper for money." Eleanor was dialing a number. "Let's see what the police have to say." in desperation, looked at Lucy. She was pale, clutching her phone. And then my friend stepped forward. I recorded everything. My mother-in-law froze. What did you record? Everything. Everything you just said. Lucy held up her phone. I turned on the recorder when we were in the storeroom, just in case. And now I have your words about the thallium, about how you knew about it. You've incriminated yourself. Eleanor turned pale. That's illegal. Recording without consent. Poisoning people is illegal, I said quietly, my voice laced with grim satisfaction. For 2 months, I've been dying from your poison. Every morning I woke up in hell, and you were there, smiling. I didn't do anything. The thallium in the storeroom. The pendant. You helped pick it out. You had access to it. You often come to our apartment when I'm not there. That's circumstantial evidence. It doesn't prove anything. And the analysis, the capsule with your fingerprints on it? Do you think the forensic team won't find anything? My mother-in-law fell silent. Her face, usually haughty and confident, now showed fear. What were you trying to do? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Kill me? Or did you just want me to get sick so Alex would leave me? Eleanor swallowed hard. You're not worthy of him, and for that, I deserve to die? I didn't want to. I thought you would just get sick. You'd become weak, helpless, and Alex would see how pathetic and useless you really are and leave you himself. But thallium is lethal. I didn't know, my mother-in-law cried. I thought it would just make you suffer a little. I looked at this woman, until recently so fearsome and all-powerful, and felt only emptiness. Not hatred, not fear, just immense exhaustion. Lucy, call the police, I said softly. Eleanor lunged at me. No, wait. We can make a deal. I'll give you money. A lot of money. But don't call the police. It's too late, I replied. Much too late. The police arrived in 20 minutes. They took Eleanor away in handcuffs, disheveled, shouting something about injustice and conspiracies. I stood on the sidewalk, wrapped in a jacket one of the officers gave me, watching the flashing blue and red lights of the patrol cars illuminate the night street. Lucy had her arm around my shoulders. How are you? I don't know. Empty. It's normal. It's shock. I need to call Alex. The police have already notified him. He's on his way. I closed my eyes. Soon my husband would arrive, and I would have to tell him that his mother was a poisoner, that the woman he had idolized his whole life had tried to kill his wife. How would he take it? Alex appeared half an hour later, pale, with a lost look in his eyes. He got out of the car and ran to me. What happened? What's going on with Mom?
They called me.
They said, Alex. My voice was low, tired. We need to talk. We were sitting in his car, just Alex and I. The police had finished questioning the witnesses and left. Lucy had gone home in a cab after hugging me, and we were left alone. In the silence of the night, under the dim light of the street lamps, I told him everything from the beginning. The morning sickness that hadn't let up for 2 months, the jeweler on the subway who saw what I hadn't noticed, the thallium capsule hidden in the pendant, the analysis that confirmed the worst suspicions. Alex listened in silence. His face was expressionless, like a mask, and only the white knuckles of his fingers gripping the steering wheel betrayed his inner tension. When I finished, a long, heavy, unbearable silence fell. You don't believe me, do you? I said quietly. It wasn't a question. Alex's voice trembled.
I don't know what to think.
It's my mother. She couldn't. There's an analysis. There's thallium found in her storeroom. There's a recording where she admits it. She was in shock. You caught her off guard in the middle of the night. People say crazy things when they're scared. I closed my eyes. There it was. What I had feared so much. He was choosing his mother again. Alex, your mother has been poisoning me for 2 months. Every day I wore that pendant, poison was entering my body. You saw how I was wasting away, how I couldn't eat, how I was fainting, and you think it's a coincidence.
But why?
Why would she do it? She said it herself.
She wanted me to get sick.
For you to see me as weak and pathetic. So you would leave me? Alex slammed his fist on the steering wheel. This is insane. My mother is not a murderer. And who put the thallium in the pendant? Did I poison myself? He turned to me, and in his eyes, I saw something terrible. Doubt. He was actually considering that possibility. Alex, my voice turned icy. Do you really think I'm capable of something like that?
No.
I don't know. I don't understand anything. He got out of the car and started pacing the sidewalk, holding his head. I got out after him. Alex, listen. No. He turned sharply. I can't talk about this now. I need to think. I need to see Mom. Talk to her. She's at the station. They won't release her until the trial. I'll find a way. He got back in the car and drove off, leaving me alone on the deserted street. I watched the taillights disappear and felt something inside me break. Slowly and painfully, I took a cab home. The apartment met me with silence and darkness. I turned on the light in the entryway and froze in front of the mirror. An exhausted woman with a dull gaze stared back at me. I wasn't wearing the pendant. They had taken it as evidence. Strangely, without it, I felt freer, lighter. Or maybe it was just the nervous exhaustion that had numbed all my senses. I went to bed without undressing and fell into a heavy, restless sleep. The morning brought a headache and a text from Lucy. How are you? Call me when you wake up. I called my friend.
Hey.
I'm still alive. Alex came by.
He left.
Said he needs to think and talk to his mother. Lucy swore. He still doesn't believe you. He's torn. It's his mother, Lucy. He can't just accept that she's a criminal. And you're his wife, the victim. He should be on your side. I sighed wearily. He should be, but he won't be. At least, not right away. And what are you going to do?
Wait.
I have no other choice. The day passed in a strange haze. I didn't go to work. I called in sick, which wasn't far from the truth. I stayed home, drinking tea, looking out the window. The phone didn't ring. Alex didn't call. In the afternoon, the detective showed up, a tired, middle-aged man with sharp eyes. He asked questions, took a statement, asked me to clarify details. I told him everything, from the first symptoms to the late-night entry into my mother-in-law's apartment. Eleanor denies her involvement. The detective informed me. She says the thallium belonged to previous tenants and that she didn't touch the pendant after it was purchased. But the recording? The recording is ambiguous. Her lawyer claims the words were taken out of context, said in a state of stress. I felt the floor give way beneath me. So now what? The forensic analysis. The criminalists will examine the pendant for fingerprints. They will compare the composition of the thallium from the capsule and the jar in the storeroom. If it matches, that will be solid proof. And if it doesn't? The detective fell silent. Then it will be more complicated. But we will find the truth. Don't worry. After he left, I sat in the dark for a long time. Thoughts swirled in my head. What if the analysis proved nothing? What if my mother-in-law got away with it? What if Alex never believed me?
The phone rang.
My husband's name appeared on the screen. Hello, Sophia. Alex's voice was dull, broken. I saw Mom at the detention center. She says it's all a misunderstanding, that you framed her. I closed my eyes. Of course. What else could I expect? And you believe her? I asked, my voice flat. For 3 years, I've endured your mother's humiliations, her jabs, her contempt. I never responded in kind. I never tried to turn you against her. And you think I'm capable of such a vile act? No, I don't think so. It's just what? She's my mother, Sophia. I can't just accept that she wanted to kill you. Then believe the facts. The analysis. Science. If she's innocent, it will be proven. But for now, all the evidence points to her. Alex was silent. I could hear his heavy breathing on the other end of the line. I need time, he said finally. How much? I don't know. I'm going to stay at a friend's for a while. I need to be alone to think about everything. My heart sank. You're leaving? I'm not leaving. I'm just taking a break. At a time like this? When I've just found out I've been poisoned for 2 months? When I need your support the most? Sophia, please don't push me. I can't right now. Can't what? Stand by your wife. Protect her? Believe her? My voice trembled with pain and anger. For 3 years I had endured. For 3 years I had stayed silent when I should have screamed. And now, when the truth had finally come out, he was choosing neutrality again. I'll call you, Alex said, and hung up. I threw the phone onto the sofa and burst into tears. For the first time in these crazy days, tears streamed down my cheeks, my body shaking with sobs, and I didn't try to hold them back. I was alone, completely alone. The next few days blended into a gray, formless blur. I went to work, mechanically performed my duties, returned to an empty apartment. Alex called once every 2 or 3 days, short, formal conversations about nothing. He would ask how I was feeling. I would answer, normal. Both of us knew it was a lie. Lucy came over every evening with food, movies, attempts to cheer me up. I was grateful, but even my friend's presence couldn't fill the void I felt. Richard didn't leave me alone either. He called, asked about the investigation's progress, gave advice. It turned out he still had contacts in law enforcement and could get first-hand information. The analysis is almost ready, he informed me one day. The results will be in soon. And what do they say? I don't know for sure yet, but my source says everything is pointing in your favor. That should have made me happy. But I only felt tired. Even if they convicted my mother-in-law, what would change? Alex would still not forgive me for betraying his mother. A week passed, then 2. I began to get used to the loneliness, the quiet evenings, the empty half of the bed, the absence of a male voice in the apartment. It was painful, but the pain became a familiar background ache. And then the detective called. Sophia, we have the results of the analysis. Can you come in? A surprise awaited me in the detective's office. Alex was already there. He looked haggard, with dark circles under his eyes, and when he saw me, he looked away. Please have a seat. The detective indicated a chair. I decided to invite you both because this matter concerns your family. I sat down, trying not to look at my husband. So, the analysis results. The detective opened a folder. The thallium from the pendant's capsule and the thallium from the jar in Eleanor's storeroom are identical. Furthermore, on the inner surface of the capsule, we found partial fingerprints that matched the suspects. I felt a huge weight lift from my shoulders. There it was, proof. In addition, the detective continued, we found a search history on Eleanor's computer. A month before your wedding anniversary, she searched for information on thallium, its properties, methods of use, and symptoms of poisoning. Alex turned pale. That can't be. Unfortunately, it can. Your mother prepared the crime meticulously. She studied the subject, bought a special slow-release capsule. By the way, they're sold online for aromatherapy, and filled it with thallium. But why? Alex's voice trembled. Why would she do it? She can answer that herself. During interrogation, under the pressure of the evidence, Eleanor confessed. I froze. She confessed. Yes, completely. The detective pulled a transcript from the folder. Here are excerpts from her statement. I quote, I wanted that woman out of my son's life. She is not worthy of him. I thought if she got sick, he would see how weak she was and leave her. I didn't want to kill her, just make her helpless. I didn't know thallium was so dangerous. Silence fell in the office. I looked at my husband. His face was gray. His lips were trembling. It's true, he whispered. It really is. Yes, the detective nodded. Your mother committed attempted murder. The case is going to trial. Alex covered his face with his hands. His shoulders began to shake. He was crying. I watched him and didn't know what to feel. Relief, pity, anger. I need to see her, Alex said in a hoarse voice. Talk to her. It's possible. I'll arrange a meeting. We left the office in silence. On the street, Alex stopped, not looking at me. Sophia first. His voice was flat, colorless. Not now.
I said.
I need to apologize to you later. First, talk to your mother. Hear everything from her firsthand, and then we'll talk. I turned and walked away, feeling his gaze on my back. Inside, I was empty. No joy from the victory. No relief from justice, just exhaustion. That evening, Lucy called. I heard the detective confirmed it. It was her. Yes, Lucy. You should be happy. Justice has been served. I guess. What's wrong with you? You sound so down. I sighed. Lucy, my mother-in-law wanted to kill me. My husband took weeks to decide who to believe. Even now, with everything proven, I'm not sure he'll forgive me for destroying his family. What is there to celebrate? Lucy was silent. Do you think your marriage? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. And do you want to save this marriage? The question hung in the air.
I thought about it.
I wanted to. 3 years of love. 3 years of life together. Alex wasn't a bad husband. Weak, indecisive, too dependent on his mother, but not bad. He loved me in his own way, as he knew how. I don't know, I answered honestly. I did before. Now too much has happened. Maybe you two need to really talk, without emotions. Maybe when he's ready. Alex was ready the next day. He came in the afternoon with flowers and a guilty look in his eyes. I opened the door and let him in without a word. I saw Mom, he said, sitting on the sofa. We talked for 2 hours. And she really did it. She confessed everything to me, without excuses, without trying to blame anyone. I sat in the armchair across from him. What did she tell you? Alex took a deep breath. That she hated you from the first day, that she considered you unworthy of me, that I'm her only son, and she couldn't stand another woman stealing me from her, and that's why she decided to poison me. She said she didn't want to kill you, just make you sick. Alex, thallium is lethal. If I had worn that pendant for a few more months. I know. His voice broke. I know.
And
God, Sophia, I'm such an idiot. I didn't believe you. I defended her when I should have been defending you. He covered his face with his hands. I almost lost you because of my own blindness. I watched him, broken, defeated. A part of me wanted to go to him, to hug him, to comfort him. Another part, the part that had suffered for weeks, demanded justice. You took her side, I said softly. When I needed your support the most, you left. I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. That's not enough. Alex looked up. What do you mean? Words? Apologies? I'll regret it. They're just words. You've always said the right things, Alex, and then you did what your mother wanted.
But now? Now what?
She'll be in prison. She won't influence our life anymore. But you'll still be the same person, a person who can't choose, who tries to please everyone, and ends up betraying those who love him most. Alex stood up and came over to me. He knelt in front of the armchair. Sophia, listen to me. I know I screwed up. I know I should have believed you from the beginning, but I was in shock. Finding out your mother is a criminal, it's like the world caves in under your feet. And how do you think I felt finding out my mother-in-law wanted to kill me and my husband believed her more than me? He lowered his head. You're right. I have no right to ask for forgiveness. No, you do. But forgiveness isn't a button you can press. It's a long and painful process. Alex looked into my eyes. Are you saying there's a chance that we can?
I don't know, Alex.
I really don't. Right now, I'm hurt. I feel pain and resentment. I can't pretend everything is okay. I'm not asking you to pretend. I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove that I can change. I was silent for a long time. 3 years of love. 3 years of hopes. Was it all for nothing? All right, I said finally. One chance. But if you ever again, there won't be a next time. I swear. He took my hand and kissed it. I didn't pull away, but I didn't respond to the gesture either. I had too many doubts. You should go, I said. I need to be alone. Alex nodded, stood up, grabbed his jacket. I'll call you tomorrow. Call me. When the door closed behind him, I sat in the dark for a long time. My heart was torn between love and resentment, hope and fear. I didn't know what would happen, but one thing was clear. Forgiving would not be easy. The trial against Eleanor was held 3 months later. I sat in the courtroom, my hands clasped in my lap. Next to me was Lucy, my loyal friend, who hadn't left my side for a minute. Alex sat at the other end of the room, alone. Since that night, our relationship had been strange. Not cold, but not close either. He would come over, we would talk, sometimes have dinner together, but he was still sleeping at his friend's place. "Until you're ready," he had told me. "I'll wait." And he waited patiently, without reproach. He sent me texts every day without demanding anything, just a good morning and a good night. He would bring me groceries when I forgot to go to the store. He would drive me to work when I was running late. Small things. But from these small things, something new was emerging. They brought Eleanor into the courtroom in handcuffs. She had aged a lot in those months. She had lost weight. She was stooped. Her hair had turned completely white, but her gaze was still the same, cold and contemptuous. When she saw me, a flicker of hatred crossed her face. The session lasted several hours. The prosecutor read the evidence. The lawyer tried to mitigate the accusation. Eleanor sat upright with a stone face. When she was given the last word, she stood up and scanned the room. "I don't regret it," she said. "This woman destroyed my family. She took my son from me. I was defending my child like any mother would." My heart sank. Even now, on the defendant's stand, my mother-in-law did not admit her guilt. "Mrs. Eleanor," the judge frowned. "You are accused of attempted murder. Your victim, your own daughter-in-law. You consider that a defense. I consider it a mother's love." A murmur went through the courtroom. The judge banged his gavel. Silence. The sentence was harsh. 8 years in prison. They led Eleanor away, and she didn't even turn to look at her son. Alex sat motionless, staring straight ahead. I could see a muscle twitching in his jaw. After the session, we met in the hallway. "Alex, don't say anything." His voice was faint. "No, you're not." He looked at me, his eyes red, his face gray. "They gave her 8 years. 8 years for my mother. She tried to kill me. I know, Sophia, but she's still my mother." I was silent, and then I did something I hadn't done in 3 months. I went up to him and hugged him. Just hugged him, without words. Alex flinched, and then he held me tightly, desperately. "Forgive me," he whispered. "For everything. For all of it." "I know," I replied softly. We stood like that for a long time in the middle of the cold courthouse hallway, and I felt something inside me shift. The resentment hadn't disappeared. It would take a long time to go away. But next to it, something else had appeared. Something like hope. That night, Alex came home, not for a visit, but to stay. "If you'll have me," he said, standing in the doorway with a duffel bag. I stepped aside, letting him in. "I can't. Promise everything will be like it was before." "I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for a chance to build something new, better than what we had." I nodded. "Then come in." The first few weeks were difficult. We were relearning how to live together without the shadow of Eleanor hanging over us, without her calls and visits, without the need for him to be torn between 2 women. Alex had changed. It was noticeable in the small things, in how he listened to me without interrupting, in how he asked for my opinion, in how he defended me in conversations with friends and family. "Your wife put your mother in prison," an uncle said to him at a family dinner. "My wife exposed a criminal who tried to kill her," Alex replied calmly. "If you ever say anything like that again, we're leaving." I watched him and didn't recognize him. This wasn't the Alex who for 3 years had hidden behind his mother. This was a man who had finally learned to choose. "You surprised me," I told him that night. "With what?" "With how you answered your uncle." Alex shrugged. "I should have answered like that from the beginning. Defended you, not looked for compromises." "Why didn't you before?" He grew thoughtful. "Mom was always the most important person in my life. My father died young, and she raised me alone. I got used to doing everything for her, her son, her friend, her support. And when you appeared, she felt threatened. And I didn't realize how she started to manipulate me, to turn me against you." "Do you still love her?" "Yes," he didn't deny it. "She's my mother. I can't change that. But loving her doesn't mean justifying her. She committed a crime, and she's paying for it. It's fair. I nodded. I understood. It was difficult, painful, but I understood. We'll get through this, I said. Together. That word, together, became our mantra in the following months. Together, we went to couples therapy, sifting through the rubble of old wounds. Together, we planned a future free from the mother-in-law's shadow. Together, we learned to trust each other again. Richard visited us sometimes. He brought old books on jewelry, told stories from his time as an expert. He and I became friends. A strange friendship between a young woman and a retired criminalist, but a sincere one. How did you find me back then? I asked him one day on the subway. Richard smiled. I wasn't looking for you. It was a coincidence. I was on my way to work. I saw you pale, exhausted, and the pendant on your neck. You know, when you work with poisonings for so many years, you start to notice things others don't. The color of your face, your weakness, it all pointed to chronic intoxication. And then I looked at the pendant and noticed that line. If it weren't for you, I'd be dead. Perhaps, but you're not. You're alive, healthy, and everything will be fine. And everything indeed began to be fine. Slowly, gradually, but it was getting better. My health returned. Without the poison in my body, the nausea disappeared completely. My appetite came back. I gained weight. 6 months after the trial, I looked like a different person, rosy-cheeked, energetic, with a sparkle in my eyes. My relationship with Alex was also improving. We learned to talk honestly, openly, without fear of hurting each other. We learned to argue constructively and to reconcile, without resentment. Are you happy? He asked me one evening as we sat on the balcony watching the sunset. I thought for a moment.
Yes.
Not like before, in a light, carefree way, but in a real, deeper way. Me too. He took my hand and intertwined our fingers. You know, I'm glad all this happened. Not the poisoning, of course, but what came to light. I was living in an illusion, Sophia. I thought my mother was perfect, that you could love 2 women equally without hurting anyone. Now I realize how naive I was. And how do you see it now? I understand that love is a choice every day, every minute, and I choose you. I lean my head on his shoulder. I choose you, too. And at that moment I realized that yes, we had gotten through it. Not immediately, not easily, but we had made it. A year passed, a year that changed everything. Our relationship, our outlook on life, our understanding of each other. I sometimes caught myself thinking that I was grateful for that terrible time, not for the pain or the fear, but because it had lanced the abscess that had been poisoning our marriage from the beginning. Eleanor was in prison. Alex went to see her once every couple of months. I didn't object. I understood that whatever my mother-in-law had done, she was still his mother. To cut that tie completely would be to force my husband to choose, and I didn't want to repeat Eleanor's mistakes. How is she? I would ask after each visit. She's aged a lot. And what does she say? Alex would shake his head. Always the same. That I betrayed her. That I chose you. That she'll never forgive me. Does it hurt to hear that? It used to. Now I just feel sorry for her. She still doesn't understand what she did. She still sees herself as the victim. I would hug my husband, and he would bury his face in my hair. These moments of intimacy were special to us, not passionate, but profound. 2 people who had been through hell and found each other again. Work at the pharmacy continued. My colleagues, who had learned my story from the news, Eleanor's case had received wide media coverage, looked at me with a new respect. I didn't like those looks, but I endured them. You're a real hero, a young intern told me. I'm not a hero. I'm just a survivor. But you uncovered the crime yourself, without the police. Not alone. Friends, casual acquaintances helped me. I couldn't have done it alone. It was the truth. Lucy, Richard, even the detective, they had all played their part. I had learned my lesson. Asking for help is not a weakness. Richard became a sort of grandfather to me, the one I never had. He visited on Sundays. He brought old books on jewelry, told stories from his practice. Sometimes terrible, sometimes funny, always instructive. You know what surprises me most about people? he said one day.
What?
Their capacity for self-deception. Eleanor sincerely believed she was protecting her son. She didn't see herself as a criminal. In her worldview, she was a loving mother fighting for her child's happiness. And that's the scariest part.
Why?
Because it's impossible to convince such a person. They live in their own reality, where they are the hero and everyone else is the villain. No evidence, no arguments can break down that wall. I grew thoughtful. I remembered my mother-in-law's face at the trial. Cold. Contemptuous. I don't regret it. Not a shadow of a doubt. Even under the threat of prison. How can you live with people like that?
I asked.
You can't. You have to stay away. You did the right thing by breaking that vicious circle. But Alex still goes to see her. That's his choice and his right. The important thing is that he has learned to see her as she is, without illusions. The spring of that year came early and was warm. I loved this time of year, when the city woke up from its winter slumber, when the air smelled of melted snow and the first flowers. Alex and I often walked in the evenings, holding hands like we did at the beginning of our relationship. Do you remember how we met? He asked one day. Of course. You spilled coffee on me in a bookstore and then spent 2 hours apologizing until I agreed to give you my number. You were so funny, all red and stammering. I just couldn't believe such a beautiful girl would talk to me. I smiled. I remembered that day in detail, the smell of fresh ink, his flustered smile, the coffee stain on my favorite blouse. I thought then, what a clumsy and cute guy. And I thought, she's the one, the woman of my life. Really? Really? From the very first moment, I knew I wanted to be with you. We stopped by a fountain in the park. The jets of water sparkled in the rays of the setting sun. Alex, I want to tell you something. He turned to me, and a shadow of concern crossed his eyes. Is something wrong?
No.
Well, yes, but something good. I took his hand and placed it on my belly. I'm pregnant. A moment of silence. And then his face lit up with such joy that my eyes filled with tears. Really? Seriously? Totally serious. 8 weeks. Alex swept me up in his arms and spun me around until I let out a little shriek. Careful. I can't be spun around now. Sorry. Sorry. He gently set me down but didn't let go. Oh my God. We're going to be parents. You and I are going to have a baby. Yes. This is the best news of my life. He kissed my cheeks, my forehead, my nose, my lips. Passers-by turned, smiling at the happy couple. I laughed through my tears. Tears of happiness I had waited so long for. The pregnancy was easy, as if in compensation for those months of torment. No nausea, no weakness, no terrible morning attacks. I blossomed. My skin glowed. My eyes shone. Even my hair seemed thicker and more lustrous. You're beautiful, Alex told me every morning. I'm fat. You're magnificent. And you're carrying our child. That makes you even more beautiful. He was incredibly attentive. Sometimes even too much so. He wouldn't let me lift anything heavier than a mug. He made me breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He monitored my vitamins and my sleep schedule. I'm pregnant, not sick. I would laugh. I know, but I want to take care of you. I want to make up for all the time I was an idiot. You've already made up for it 100 times over. Well, one more time won't hurt. Lucy came over every week, bringing fruit, baby magazines, endless advice about pregnancy. You need to walk for at least an hour a day. I walk. And eat right. I eat right. And no stress. Lucy, you're worse than a mother-in-law. My friend froze, realizing the double meaning of the phrase. Then we both burst out laughing. Well, at least I'm not poisoning you, Lucy said through her laughter. That's true. You're just smothering me with your care. It's my job. I'm the godmother. We haven't decided on godparents yet. I've already decided for you. No objections will be accepted. I hug my friend. What would I have done without Lucy? Without her support, her stubbornness, her endless loyalty. Thank you. For what? For everything. For being there when I was at my worst. for believing me when even my husband doubted, for that night in the storeroom. Lucy waved it off. Nonsense. It's us, you, and me against the world. Remember in college? I remember. We fell silent, reminiscing about our student years, the dorms, the exams, the late-night talks about the future. Everything seemed so simple then. Find a job, find love, be happy. Reality turned out to be more complicated, but also more interesting. Richard, upon hearing about the pregnancy, was moved to tears. A new life, he said, wiping his eyes with a handkerchief. After what you've been through, a new life is a miracle. You're exaggerating. Not at all. Do you know how many cases I handled in my career? Hundreds. And in most of them, the ending was tragic. Death, prison, broken families. But here, a happy ending. It's a rarity, believe me. Thanks to you. What are you saying? I just noticed something was wrong. Everything else is your doing. I shook my head. If you hadn't approached me on the subway, I would be dead. That's a fact. Richard was silent. At that moment I hesitated. I thought, what if I'm wrong? What if this woman looks at me like I'm a lunatic? But something pushed me. Maybe intuition, maybe experience, or maybe fate. I believe in fate, I said. After everything that's happened, I believe. The months passed. My belly grew. The baby kicked, and every kick filled me with an indescribable happiness. I talked to my little one, sang songs, read books aloud. You're spoiling him. Alex laughed. Him or her? What? The ultrasound confirmed it. It's a girl. Alex froze. A girl? We're having a daughter? Yes. He knelt in front of me and rested his cheek on my belly. Hello, little one. I'm your daddy. I love you already. I stroked his hair, my heart overflowing with tenderness. This man, my husband, the father of my daughter, had been through fire to become who he was now. Not perfect, but real. We took a long time to choose a name. We went through hundreds of options, from classic to exotic. Anna, Alex suggested. No, too common. Isabella? Too long. So what? I thought. What if we name her after someone close to us?
Like who?
Your grandmother, for example. What was her name? Alex frowned. My paternal grandmother was Carmen. My maternal one, Dolores. Dolores?
No.
And Carmen. Clara. Clara Sanchez. Alex tried it out. Sounds good. Decided. Our daughter will be named Clara. We shook hands as if sealing an important deal, and then laughed at ourselves, at our solemnity, at everything. The labor began at night, as expected. I woke up with a dull ache in my lower abdomen and knew. It's time. Alex. Alex, wake up. What? He jumped up as if stung and started rushing around the room, looking for his clothes, the keys, the hospital bag. Calm down, I said, though I was nervous, too. The bag is by the door. The papers are inside. The car is in the garage. Yes, I know. I'm just panicking. I'm panicking, too, he admitted. I smiled despite the pain. Then let's panic together on the way to the hospital. We got to the hospital in time. The contractions intensified, and by morning, I was in the delivery room. Alex stayed outside. He wanted to be present, but I refused. This is my test. I can handle it. Are you sure? Absolutely. And I did handle it. Clara was born at dawn, small, wrinkled, with a shock of dark hair and a surprisingly lucid gaze. When the midwife placed her on my chest, time stood still. Hello, little one, I whispered. I've waited so long for you. The baby looked at me seriously, intently, as if recognizing me, and then yawned and closed her eyes. I cried from happiness, from relief, from the overwhelming love. Everything I had been through, the poisoning, the betrayal, the pain, had led me here, to this moment, and it was worth it. They let Alex in an hour later. He tiptoed in as if afraid of scaring someone and froze by the bed. It's her. That's her. That's Clara. He took his daughter in his arms clumsily, like all new fathers. Clara whimpered a little, but then quieted down. She's so small. 7 pounds. A normal weight. And so beautiful. She looks like you. I smiled. She has your nose.
See? Look.
Alex examined the tiny face. Yes, maybe. And the chin is mine, too.
See?
Teamwork. He leaned over and kissed his wife tenderly, gratefully. Thank you. For what?
For everything.
For existing. For forgiving me. For Clara. For our family. I took his hand. We're a team. Remember? The first few months with the baby were a whirlwind. Night feedings, endless diapers, colic, and teething. Alex and I didn't sleep. We argued over little things.
We made up even faster.
I read that the first year with a baby is a test for a marriage, Alex said once, rocking a crying Clara. We've already passed a tougher test, I replied. This is nothing. And it was true. After the poisoning, the betrayal, the trial, sleepless nights seemed like a trifle. We managed together, as a team. Lucy became the godmother, as she had promised. Richard, the unofficial honorary grandfather. Little Clara grew up surrounded by love and care. For her first birthday, we threw a small party, just the closest family and friends. Lucy brought a giant teddy bear. Richard brought a small silver spoon, an antique, engraved for good luck, he said. Thank you. I hugged the old man. Over the year, he had become truly dear to me. How are you feeling? I asked him. He had looked tired lately. Normal age, you know. I'm not a young man anymore. You need to take care of yourself. I do. But when you have someone to live for, even illness retreats. He looked at Clara, who was seriously examining the gifted teddy bear. A wonderful girl, just like her mother. Alex says she looks like him. Then both of you, the best of both. That evening, after the guests had left and Clara was asleep, Alex and I sat in the kitchen, finishing our tea. It's funny, I said. What is? A year ago, we were in the worst kind of hell, and now everything is fine. Really fine.
Yes.
Do you miss the old life? Alex thought for a moment.
Sometimes.
Not my mother, but the illusion that I had a perfect family. It was comfortable, you know, to believe that everything was okay.
And now?
Now I know the truth. It's more painful, but it's more honest.
He took my hand.
And you know what? I wouldn't trade this honesty for anything. I nodded. I understood. Me neither. We fell silent. And it was a good silence, full of understanding, closeness, and love. Clara grew into an incredible child. At 2, she was already forming sentences. At 3, she asked endless questions about everything. I left my job at the pharmacy to devote myself to my daughter. Alex worked for both of us. He was promoted, and now we could afford it. You don't regret it, he would ask me. Not for a second. This is the best job of my life. And it was true. Watching my daughter grow, teaching her new things, seeing the world through her eyes. Nothing could compare to this happiness. Eleanor was still in prison. Alex continued to visit her, less frequently, once every 3 or 4 months. He always came back quiet, lost in thought. How is she? I would ask. The same. Nothing has changed. He no longer shared the details, and I didn't ask. It was his pain, his cross to bear. I could only be there for him. One day, he came back from a visit, especially pensive. Sophia, I want to ask you something. What is it? Mom, she asked to see Clara. At least in a photo. I tensed. Did you show her?
No.
I told her I would talk to you first. I was silent. A part of me wanted to refuse outright. That woman had tried to kill me. What right did she have to see my daughter? But another part understood that she was Clara's grandmother, whatever she had done. I'll think about it. Alex nodded. Thank you for not saying no right away. I thought about it for several days. I consulted with Lucy, who was categorically against it, and with Richard, who told me the decision was mine. It's your family, he said, and your right to forgive or not. I don't know if I can forgive. Forgiveness is a process, not an event. Sometimes it takes a lifetime, but it starts with a small step. A week later, I gave Alex a photo of Clara, a small one, where the girl was smiling at the camera, holding a teddy bear. Can you show her this? He looked at me with gratitude. Are you sure? No, but it's the right thing to do. Clara has a right to know she is a grandmother, even if she did terrible things. Thank you. He hugged me tightly, gratefully, and I realized it was another step toward healing. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a movement in that direction. The years went by. Clara went to preschool, then to school. She grew up to be a smart, curious girl with a strong character, a true mix of her parents. Who did she get this stubbornness from? Alex would laugh. From you. Of course, that's a lie. You're the stubborn one here. I'm persistent. It's different. We argued like all families, but our arguments were different. No poison, no manipulation, no third parties trying to stir up trouble between us. Eleanor was released from prison when Clara was 7. Her sentence had been reduced for good behavior. Alex went to pick her up. I stayed home. I wasn't ready for that meeting. Maybe I never would be. He came back late that night alone. How did it go? Strange. She's aged so much. Completely gray, very quiet. What did she say? She asked for forgiveness. I froze. For the first time in all these years. She said she thought a lot in prison, that she realized how wrong she was, that she ruined our lives. Yours, mine, and hers. And, did you believe her? Alex was silent. I don't know. I want to believe her, but I'm scared. Scared of what? That it's another manipulation, that she hasn't really changed. I nodded. I understood his fear. I felt the same. What did you tell her? I told her that forgiveness is a process, that I need time. That's wise. Those are your words. You said them to me once. I smiled. I'm glad they came in handy. Eleanor settled in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. Alex helped her financially. I didn't object. My mother-in-law was an old, sick, and lonely woman. Whatever she had done, that punishment was harsh enough. The first meeting between Sophia and Eleanor took place 6 months after her release. I prepared for a long time, mentally and emotionally. I didn't know what to expect. My mother-in-law opened the door, and I barely recognized her. Thin, stooped, with a dull gaze. There was nothing left of the imperious, self-assured woman who had once terrified me. Hello, Eleanor said softly. Hello. A pause. Then my mother-in-law stepped aside. Come in. The apartment was small and sparsely furnished. On the wall was a single photo, the same one Alex had brought her in prison, Clara with a teddy bear. Would you like some tea? Yes, thank you. We sat at a tiny kitchen table. Eleanor poured the tea with trembling hands. I'm glad you came. Alex asked me to. I know, but you could have refused. I nodded. I could have, but I didn't. I wanted to look you in the eye. And what do you see? I looked into my mother-in-law's face. Aged. Changed. I see the woman who tried to kill me, and the woman who paid for it. Eleanor looked down. I didn't want to. I didn't think. You didn't think it was so dangerous. I know. It's not an excuse. No, it's not an excuse. Silence. Then Eleanor spoke softly, her voice broken. When Alex brought you home, I was scared. He looked at you in a way he never looked at me. I realized I was losing him, and I couldn't accept it. You weren't losing him. He loved you, but he loved me too. And it seemed to me there wasn't room for both of us in his heart. I shook my head. That's not true. There's always room in the heart for those you love. You yourself poisoned his feelings for you, with your jealousy, with your intrigues. Long before that pendant. My mother-in-law flinched. You're right. I know you're right. But I was blind then. And now I see. Late, but I see. We sat, drinking tea for another hour. The conversation was difficult, painful, but necessary. I didn't forgive her. Not yet. But I took a step toward it. I want to see my granddaughter, Eleanor said as we parted. If you'll let me. I thought about it. Not now. Maybe in time. When I'm ready. I understand. And one more thing. Yes. If you ever, even once, try to turn Clara against me, to deceive or manipulate her, I will never let you near her again. Is that clear? Eleanor nodded.
Clear.
I won't. I swear. I left without looking back. Alex was waiting for me on the street. How did it go? Normal. Better than I expected. He hugged me. You're an incredible woman. You know that. I know. We laughed together, like in the old days. The first meeting between Clara and her grandmother took place a year later. I prepared my daughter, for a long time. I explained that Grandma had been sick and had done bad things, but that she was better now. Like a cold, Clara asked. Something like that, but in her head, and now she's healthy. I hope so. The meeting was on neutral territory in a park. Eleanor came with a gift, a book of fairy tales. Hello, Clara, she said, her voice trembling. I'm your grandmother. Clara looked at her seriously, with the same gaze as her mother. Mom says you were sick. Yes, but I'm better now. That's good. Being sick is bad. Eleanor smiled for the first time in a long time. Yes, it's bad, but I'm well now. She handed her the book. This is for you. Clara took the gift and thanked her politely. Then she turned to me. Mom, can we go to the swings? Of course. The girl ran to the playground. Eleanor and I were left alone. Thank you, my mother-in-law said quietly. Thank you for giving me this chance. Don't thank me. Thank Alex, he insisted. But you agreed. I was silent. I'm not a saint, Eleanor. I haven't forgotten what you did, and I'm not sure I ever will. I'm not asking you to forget, but I'm tired of hating. It takes too much energy. Energy that I want to spend on my family, on my daughter, on being happy. That's wise. It's practical. We fell silent, watching Clara, who was swinging on the swings, laughing with joy. She's beautiful, Eleanor said. Yes. It wasn't the end of the story. The relationship with Eleanor remained complicated. Not hostile, but not close either. I couldn't bring myself to love my mother-in-law, but I learned to coexist with her for the sake of my husband, my daughter, and my own peace of mind. Richard died when Clara was 10, peacefully in his sleep, with a smile on his face. I cried at his funeral, as if he were my own family. He saved me, I told Alex. If it weren't for him, I know. I want Clara to remember him. She does, and she will. We put his photo on the mantelpiece next to the family pictures. Richard smiled from it with his wise smile, and it seemed to me that he was still nearby, looking out for me. Lucy got married late, at 42, but happily. Her chosen one was a doctor from her clinic, a calm, reliable man with kind eyes. I finally hit the jackpot, she laughed at the wedding. You deserve it. We both do. You hit yours earlier, me later. The important thing is that we hit it. I hugged my friend. I'm so happy for you. And I for you. I always have been. We danced together, the two friends who had been through thick and thin. Behind us were years, difficult, joyful, different. Ahead of us were more years, and we faced them together. One evening, when Clara was already 12, she came to me with a question. Mom, is it true that Grandma wanted to poison you? I froze. I knew this conversation would come one day, but I wasn't ready. Where did you hear that? I found it on the internet. There are articles about the trial. Sophia, the internet remembers everything. It's true. But why? Because she was sick. Not in her body, but in her soul. She loved Dad so much that she couldn't stand him loving someone else. But that's silly. You can love lots of people at once. You can, but she didn't understand that. Clara thought for a moment. And have you forgiven her? I was silent. I'm learning to forgive. It's hard, you know? When someone hurts you badly, it's impossible to forgive right away. But holding a grudge is even harder. That's why I'm learning. And how's it going?
Slowly.
A little better every day. Clara hugged her mother. You're the best mom in the world. And you're the best daughter. We stood like that, hugging in the quiet room. And I thought about the long road I had traveled. From that exhausted woman on the subway, saved by an unknown jeweler, to a happy wife and mother. The road had been hard. There were times when I wanted to give up. There were moments of despair and pain. But I endured. We endured together with Alex, and it was worth it. That same evening, Alex found me by the window. I was watching the sunset, red, golden, incredibly beautiful. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About life. About how everything turned out. Do you regret anything?" I thought for a moment.
No.
Not even the bad things. Because without the bad, there wouldn't have been the good. We wouldn't be who we are now. Alex came up and hugged me from behind. "I love you. I love you too. Thank you for not giving up, for giving me a chance. Thank you for taking it." We stood by the window, watching the sunset. And I felt absolutely, completely happy. Not because everything was perfect. Life is never perfect. But because I had learned to find happiness in what I had. Family, love. Everything good in my life. "Goodbye," I whispered. "I forgive you." And I felt something inside me release. Something heavy I had carried for all these years. The resentment, the pain, the fear, it all went away, dissolved, disappeared. Only love remained. For my husband, for my daughter, for life.
And that was enough.
Now, many years later, I sometimes take out an old photo, the one of Alex and me on our wedding day. Young, happy, not knowing what awaited us. If I had known then, I say to my past self, it would have been terrifying. But I would have done it all again. Have you ever faced a betrayal so deep it changed everything you thought you knew about someone you loved? What would you have done if you discovered such a horrifying truth? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I truly want to hear them.